Very important. So yeah, let's just tie it up with this, like a pretty much consensus on what we think can be done to like further limit the occurrences of war, right? So even if it may not necessarily be at a stage in human civilization, right, where we can outrightly end wars, right? But at least there could be steps that we can take to minimize the occurrences of wars, right? So do you have like any perspective that you could say would help to at least address this sense of fear, threat, mistrust, like you said, and then also this, competition for ideological prevalences or supremacy, and then also for like the resource limitations. How can they be addressed?
Wow, that's a very big one, really, because right now there is a lot of parity, in ideologies and in what people believe, and there's a lot of reservations, for instance. And where do we even start from? I think education is going to play a lot of role
Yeah.
in this case. And when I talk about education, I mean from very, very ground roots. So let's take the Israel-Palestinian conflict, for instance. We have a new generation coming up. What they are saying and what they are hearing matters, right? Because the people that we have there today that are fighting the war were not there 50 years ago when the war kind of started to
Yeah.
spring about. They heard things, they were told things, they saw things. And those are the things that kind of build up together. And then you now start seeing groups and cliques forming together. And before you know it, you have like people that are fighting against like an opposition. So I think you have to now start to catch them young, exactly, and start to educate people about what is right. That is very difficult to again. I like to put it this way, like it's just that when people talk about AI, I'm trying to bring that in, like will AI take out the world? How should they be trained? The question I ask is, on whose ethics do you want to train them?
Mm.
That's the very big question. So if Russia is training them now, what do you think is right or wrong? Maybe different from if Africans are training them or if the US is training them. Same thing with educating people. What if an Israeli is going to be educating like a Palestinian, my son from Gaza, for instance, almost certainly going to be different from if it's from the other side. So how we're going to now get to that consensus is like what I don't know now. But I know that if we can get to a consensus where we start training people, educating people on, on what we are, conflict will always arise, but how do we manage them for us? I think those will play a huge role. Secondly, I also feel like religious organizations will play a big role here because many of the political ideologies that come is always from a religious background.
Is it
Anywhere in the
always
world,
though?
most of the time. A lot of time. Look at US. Like the idea of the democratic government has a huge base in the Judeo Christian tradition. Like it's very ingrained in it.
Okay, but like when you look at the opposite side, in terms of like the liberals,
Yeah.
most of it is like non-conformist to religious views.
Most of them are reactionary, but that's like a separate conversation.
There's still that Christian
It's
ethic
in most of
in the
it.
kind of structure they
Yeah.
have.
I mean,
Some
look,
people might be always tear it down, say, well, we know at the end of the day, you might have to conform.
yeah. And everybody will say that they are culturally Christian. But that's like a separate thing. And if you look at from the Middle East too, most of it stem from Islam. You understand what I'm saying? So there is that too. I feel religious leaders now have a huge role to play in kind of
Minimize.
educating people to be more tolerant, for instance. Like, oh,
Mm.
there are people with other beliefs, they don't necessarily mean harm to you, should be accommodating.
Yeah.
So maybe if we can start from that ground up, we can now have a generation of people who are much more like tolerant and are willing to give up some things that will hurt the other person because I mean not all of them really you need to do them. I mean, you can just keep it up.
Yeah.
Maybe that can help.
Very
Right.
true.
And then I think policies too, like leaders can also actually make policies and concessions really more often time. Many of the wars we have today can be avoided. In terms of they can be well negotiated. And you can have negotiation and give out things. I mean, before the Russia war, there was no negotiation. They just ended in a deadlock.
Mm.
So most of those most of the things either parties were kind of requesting can be tweaked. Really, if you think about it, it's not maybe it's over the top. It's something that can be really, really tweaked, and then actually ask people. Most of the referendum, you always see that there's always interest of the leaders directly in those referendums. It's not really from the people voting, and that's these people have voted, so they want to be a part of us. Seriously, you know. So I think if they are really honest about, by I mean the leaders now, about what they are doing, maybe we can have what the people really want. More often than not, the citizens they don't want any of this because they themselves they are tired. They just want to live their life
Yeah.
and just have a thing to do, and so just go to that. So maybe we can have a bit of that, and many of these conflict can be minimized.
Yeah.
So that's why.
Interesting. So three things you mentioned, like education, basically. I think that's also very important because I think that's part of what the US did in Japan, in the sense that, after they removed the imperialist empire structure, they now started focusing more on like educating the newer generation. So I think it did work. Then also like the religious tolerance, right? The religious leaders have to work together to at least try to minimize intolerant
Yeah.
beliefs and ostracize that from society. Yeah, and then policies as well, like your diplomacy,
Yes.
improve on it. Right. If I do have anything you want to contribute.
Yeah, as you said, education, and also like access to quality and true information. Because that's another thing. When you give people controlled information or
Yeah.
you tell people what you want them to hear, eventually that's what they are going to believe. So at least with the internet now, it's easier to access some of these things. That's why some of these dictatorship countries they try to ban some
Minimize.
particular sites or things like that so
Yeah.
that people don't get to know what the real
Real
information is,
versus
so that they gear their minds towards a certain kind of purpose.
propaganda.
So that's one of the things. And then also, as you said, just making people to know that human beings for the most part want the same things
Yeah.
generally, and that some things are unnecessary. You can live a healthy, happy human being with a family, and it's not until you conquer 10,000 acres that you now become a formidable person.
Yeah.
So those things, I feel they can help. So another thing I guess would be to from the start, from the scratch, as you said, making people more tolerant of others. He was talking about the Japanese. The Japanese, after they lost the war, the US were there for more than 30-35 years
Yeah.
to dramatically change their system, their altering. There's this there might be this internal conflict between, do you want to, now because you won the war, do you want to impose your kind of thinking against me? But at the same time, if you probably left them, they would have been thinking of
Even radical.
revenge,
Like, yeah, I think that's something that
how they were
happened.
going to revenge. So, but because maybe as at that time the US were there or whatever really that happened, the Japanese they went through a time of really
Reorientation.
sober reflection and reorientation. They imagined their society like they they reimagined themselves and thought that okay, we will be people that are get towards more the ethics of hard work
Yeah.
and intelligence. That's what they now wanted to be known for, not the people that believe that the emperor is a god and they're supposed to dominate all of the
I think
world.
that's the confluence between what happened in Japan and what happened in North Korea, right? In Japan, after they conquered them, they were able to like reorientate them to shape the society and all that. But in North Korea, they were not able to conquer
Yeah,
them.
there was a war, so
Ye-
it splits north
Yeah,
and south
South,
basically.
yeah. But then in the North, you now had this culture of revenge that became like the dominant view. Like we have to arm ourselves to the teeth, even to the lungs, basically, right? It's just so that they will never ever suffer that sort of
Yeah,
catastrophe as
but
happened in the world.
also a part of it too was influenced by the Cold War, the communist and
Yeah.
capitalist ideologies that split North
Yeah,
and South Korea
yeah,
because each wanted to exert themselves,
yeah.
and you can see how this person thinks and this other person thinks.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Very interesting topic. So, guys, I think we've been able to like do our best to examine this very, very, very difficult topic. Is war necessary for peace? I think we came up with some resolutions that could be alternatives to war. Maybe not in the present, because right now we are a very broken species. But probably sometime in the future, someone could watch this video and get some ideas to implement. Right, education. Right, in the sense of like uh, also in line with religious tolerance, basically education and religious tolerance, and not only religious tolerance but also political tolerance. I'll add as well, right? Even though your ideologies may differ, but at least you should be able to reach some common consensus as to how you want to approach those differences without necessarily resorting to war. So being tolerant on the other side is important. Then also policies as well and diplomacy. Right, ensure that whenever you're approaching diplomatic negotiations, rather, you're willing to like make necessary concessions. Right, some things are not as hard as you think they are. Right, most of it is basically just in your emotions or in your mind. Right, and then also as Ifeanyi also said as well, the ability to embrace your orientation as well. Right, so for sides that may have probably have lost the war or maybe on the losing end of things, right? Being able to like direct your energy, your focus towards things that may be more positive rather than constantly looking back at the past and trying to like hold on to the angers and probably the injustice of the past, right? Being able to like let go of that and venture towards what could be a bright future. So guys, we'd like to hear from you. What do you think? Is war necessary for peace? Are there some things that I disagree with what was said in this discussion? Do you have like some ideas that if you could be a better alternatives, right, to this current cycle of warfare? Let's hear it in the comment section, and then hopefully we'll be able to discuss more. So thank you for listening, and do have a good time. Thank you.